Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Wednesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the June 17th, 2026 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is our number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube, and email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Follow me on all the socials under Choose Views, and catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Patty Vasquez driving it home. It's The Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other great shows and interviews. And also in the evenings, The Politics Bar, The Matt McNeil Show, and The Gailey Show. Make sure you're tuning in to those great programs. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. A couple of quick articles you guys want to check out when you head that way. Ohio Senator John Husted is hit with an ethics complaint after a senior staffer that worked for him, a senior staffer had been found working for a lobbying firm. So you got to check that one out. Pretty revealing. And speaking of revealing, records reveal that Representative Chris Van Orden, skipped 10 key agriculture hearings as farmers are dealing with bankruptcies, and those are surging. So 2 really good articles that you can catch there, recently posted by our team. Make sure you are sharing them, liking them, and sharing them with all your folks, because that's what you do. I mentioned The Gailey Show earlier, and I'll talk a little bit about our guest today, and then we're going to take a little bit of an early break because I have some things I want to cover after we come back with regard to Choose Views News. I have a couple other things I want to talk to you guys about. All right, on today's show, Kurt Mullett will be with us a little bit earlier than normal. He'll be with us in the 6:30 hour from Hoosier Blue 63. John Parker, who is the host of The Gailey Show, KTNF, at AM 950 in Minnesota, will be with us in the 7 o'clock hour. And then in 7:30 hour, Kelda Royce, who is a Minnesota candidate for governor. I'm sorry, why did I say Minnesota? Wisconsin candidate for governor. Different state, neighboring. She's a Wisconsin candidate for governor. She'll be with us in the 7:30 hour. Looking forward to having her back on the show. So stay tuned. Get your notebooks out so you can take some notes and then share them with your people. All right. Get right to the question of the day. And this is tied into something that I'm going to talk a little bit about when we come back from this first break. What would happen if we all dumped Facebook and Twitter? I mean, completely dumped them. Now, some people might say, well, what would be the point of doing that? So the way I look at it is, if we were to dump Facebook and Twitter, we no longer participated on Facebook. How about if we put a number to it? The 77 million people that voted for Kamala Harris in 2024 all said, I'm done with Facebook and I'm done with Twitter. And I'll tell you why when we come back. I'll share with you kind of something I put together with not so much specific to that question, but about something about protesting that I was reminded of. So, what would happen if we all dumped Facebook and Twitter? And would you do it if it would cause some financial check on Zuckerberg and Musk? So, there you go. That's our question of the day. I'm hearing in the background. So that means we're going to take a quick break, guys. Number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. You're listening to on WCPT AM 820. Goodness gracious, here in Chicago, 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chew. We'll be right back. right, guys, welcome back to the show. Choose Views 773-763-9278 is where you are. So let's hit them with a couple of quick Choose Views news items, and then I want to get to some thoughts I put together on something here on this June 17, 2026. Both parents work full-time in more families than ever. The American family dynamic continues to shift as more college-educated moms opt for full-time work. Both parents work at least 40 hours per week in a record 52% of U.S. families, a 6% rise since 2016, according to data from Pew in Tuesday's findings. The change comes as more mothers with bachelor's and postgraduate degrees pursue full-time employment, and more dads assume domestic responsibilities. Data out last month indicates that college-educated fathers are increasingly forsaking paid jobs for childcare and housework. The U.S. will lift the Iran oil sanctions, according to what's being said about the accords being signed. They plan to permit Iran to resume oil and fuel exports as part of the accord aimed at ending the conflict, according to the Wall Street Journal. Sources are varied. Sanctions on oil sales would be lifted immediately when the agreement is signed, if it gets signed this week. And Yum Brands is struggling to sell Pizza Hut brand for $2.7 billion. They announced yesterday. They are selling it because it is struggling, and a pair of deals worth about $2.7 billion. Private equity firm Long Range Capital will purchase most of the chain's locations for about $1.5 billion, while Pizza Hut's China restaurants will be taken over by Yum China Holdings. Yum Brands began a strategic review of the Pizza Hut business in late 2025 after years of struggles amid heightened competition. Pizza Hut held the title of the world's biggest pizza chain for nearly 50 years until it was dethroned in 2017 by Domino's. The world's richest just gained a record $336 billion in one day. The 500 richest people in the world added a record $336 billion to their fortunes yesterday, the largest one-day accumulation of wealth in the history of the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, pushing their net worth to an all-time high of $13.3 trillion. Leading the way was SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, whose new net worth leapt over $1.27 trillion, I should say. Markets soared on news of a possible peace deal that we were talking about to reopen the Straits of Hormuz, which bumped all of the 500 billionaire class wealth. The reason I say that is it kind of leads to something I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I asked a question earlier, the question of the day, what would happen if we all dumped Facebook and Twitter? And would you do it if you knew it would cause some financial check to folks like Zuckerberg and Musk? So, I'd like to hear your answer to that question for the question of the day. But I want to talk a little bit about something that was it's obviously a concern that we are, concern may not be the best word, but it's certainly a point of conversation. And that is this UFC event that took place at the White House. And it's a question of, the money that was spent. It's a question of how we look at what the president is doing. And we've got all framed it in one way or another. And oftentimes what happens when we talk about Donald Trump, and I fall susceptible to it as well, is that we talk about Donald Trump and how awful he is. And that's true. Don't know him personally, but from all evidence, it seems based on his actions that he's an awful human being. So there. No one can say that I called him, but his actions represent that. And as a president, there's no question. He is the worst president of all time. And not even just in my lifetime. So he's failed on his promises. He's done all these things that have caused nothing but consternation and chaos for so many people, not just here in America, but across the globe. Think of all the people that were put in harm's way, suffered because of him backing what's happening in Iran, and him continuing to be sort of on the fence and supporting Russia as it relates to the Ukraine war that Russia started. and most certainly how Israel has continued to create genocide. And the Israeli army and government have continued to perpetrate genocide in Gaza. All these things. And then we get into the Epstein files and all the rest. All those things that we know that are the awful parts when it comes to humanity and life that Trump has been behind or stood by and watched happen or prevented from being fully brought to our knowledge in the case of the Epstein files. So where am I going with this? And I thought about this as it relates to the question of the day, and I thought about this as it relates to this UFC event. And my brain goes down the path of we should not just blame Trump. We blame him, but as I said dozens of times, it's also those Republican members of Congress that are in the House and in the Senate, and some state legislators in state legislatures. That's where a lot of the blame is to be placed, along with voters who, for whatever reason, on the right, didn't do enough research, or they were already built and prone to vote in a racist, sexist way in this last general election, and have continued to stand behind or stand by what this administration is doing. But for me, when I thought about this UFC event, and I thought about what this guy said about Michelle Obama, I started trying to. I said there's got to be more depth to the way in which we attack this. Saying what was said about Michelle Obama was incredibly awful and horrible, disgusting thing to say. And it was disgusting because of the obvious words that came out of his mouth, but the venue that it was said in or at is one of the things that I think has got so many people kind of bent. I took some time to watch a little bit of MS News yesterday, and specific MS Now rather, and particularly Nicole Wallace. So one of the things that came to mind to me is we've got to find ways to continue to press the businesses. And so in every case that we look at, going back to the inauguration, and this is where the question of the day kind of comes from, there are certain people that show up. And you've heard me and others talk about Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and other folks that are part of Palantir and Musk and Twitter. That's why I posed the question of the day the way in which I did about how would you react? How would you dump Facebook and Twitter? But I think part of what we have to be willing to do is look at who the companies are that are backing this president, that are backing in that by literally giving the administration money or indirectly supporting him by back channeling money through whatever ways the Justice Department is allowing to happen, whether they be campaign contributions or other things. We have to look at those companies with a slightly different light. Zuckerberg, and so here's the point. Zuckerberg was yucking it up with many of the people that were there at this event at the White House, this UFC event. And there were many other people that were there that represent companies. And that's when I thought about this. I went and kind of pulled some of the information, and I said, well, our approach should include our ability to let those companies know how we feel about being a part of that event, but also not standing up for a former first lady when it comes to saying what this fighter said about her. Because it goes deeper than just the White House having this event there, in my opinion. It goes into these organizations that are throwing money at Trump and his regime, his chaos. So I want to give you guys a couple of the names that you should do your own work, do your own Googling. I can only give you so much in a certain amount of time. But some of the companies that were part of the event, this USC Freedom 250, as they're calling it, are brands that we're familiar with. And so not only were they supporters of this, carnage, as I'm going to call it, on the White House lawn. But if they were also companies where I would expect, I'm not going to say expect, but it's very telling to me that they haven't stepped up to say what this fighter said about Michelle Obama was wrong, disgusting, and we denounce it. The word denounce is what comes to mind. They have not publicly denounced it. So I think we should make their brands pay by boycotting their brands until they do. And they may not ever, but we should boycott their brands forever. So I'll give you a couple right out of the gate. Bud Light was one of the sponsors. And I'm sure there are probably a diverse amount of people that drink Bud Light beer. I don't know that, but just common sense tells me that there's probably data to go past my common sense. Bud Light is one of the companies. Monster Energy is one of the companies. Dodge Ram Trucks is one of the companies. Poly Market, Starlink, Scott's Miracle-Gro, Jose Cuervo, New Amsterdam Vodka. Let's boycott those companies, guys. If we are what we say we are when it comes to who we believe in and who we support, then maybe we should boycott those companies. Maybe we should not use their products. If you want to find a way to fight back and push back against this kind of just degrading behavior and not being able until they denounce what this guy said. Okay. So the CEO of Ram Trucks, his name is Tim Kuniskis. Call his office and let him know you need to denounce what this guy said. You're one of the sponsors, a key sponsor there. Your organization, your company should denounce what this guy said about former First Lady on the lawn of the White House. Okay? Shane Copeland is the founder and chief executive officer of Poly Market. That's another company that should hear from us. And if you can't boycott a company, you can certainly call them and leave a message and let them know that this is what you think and how you feel. Hilton Schlossberg is the CEO and vice chair of Monster Beverage Corporation. Let's ring his office up and let them know we do not appreciate a company that has a brand that many people use, standing by and not denouncing what's something that happened at an event that you were a sponsor of. Brendan Whitworth is the CEO of Anheuser-Busch. That makes Bud Light. He deserves a phone call. This same thing. You need to denounce what this guy did. You need to denounce it now. The CEO of DraftKings, Jason Robbins, it's another one to call. And let them know they need to denounce. Because what will happen is we'll be upset about it. We'll yell and scream about it. I'll talk about it. Others will talk about it. And I think that one the things that we have to also add to that is we have to be willing to call these organizations and let these organizations know that is not cool. And beyond it not being cool, you as a CEO or president or head of an organization like this, a founder of an organization, should recognize that we, the people, don't like that you're not standing up for people who may be attacked. Because this was an attack by a representative of an organization, UFC, and it was an attack by, indirectly, the White House, because it was on the White House lawn. So we need to make it clear to these organizations. And so I said earlier that we are upset and we yell and we're disgusted by Donald Trump as a person, as an individual, and even more so as a president. We're upset and we're disgusted by how the Republicans in Congress, House and Senate, and many state legislators sit back and let all these things just fly by. They're supportive. They're the ones that are the guardians of all this garbage. And it's also the organizations. We oftentimes talk about the millionaires and billionaires and all the rest, and their taxes and all the things that they get, and tax breaks and such. But I think that we have to be willing to not just say those words, the billionaires and the corporate elite. We have to start saying their names Their names need to come out of our mouths. The names of the CEO of Ram Trucks, Tim Kuniskis, needs to come out of our mouth. Shane Copeland and Polymarket. We need to say their names and not just make it be about the billionaire class or the CEO class. Hilton Schlossberg of Monster, Brendan Whitworth of Anheuser-Busch, and Jason Robbins of DraftKings. Those are just the 5 that were the primary sponsors. There were others that are ones that are in the tech world and such. But we need to say their names out loud. We need to let it be known. We can't, listen, I go back and forth on this and talk to a number of different people about the things that Democrats are not doing. We know that. But the Republicans are the ones that are blocking all the things that Democrats are trying to do on a state level as well as on a federal level. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. But more important, not more importantly, along with that of a level of importance, is that it's corporations whose names need to be outed as much as political officials. We need to start to say their names. And we need to let them know that I'm not going to use your product. And in fact, I'm going to speak about your product in a not positive way if you as a CEO or a founder or a president of an organization can't speak to the way in which this White House is operating. If you can't do that, then we need to let you know that your product is no longer welcome in our lives. You might think of it as a small thing to do, but imagine when a lot of people do a small thing. That's called a protest. That's called a pushback. So just wanted to put that out there today so that we have a homework assignment beyond just yelling and screaming about how awful this event was. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking with our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, and I know he may have a few things to say about what happened this weekend. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. So listen, a couple of quick comments before we get to Kurt. Cassie in Oak Park says wouldn't move her world a bit. She'd miss some of the reels in terms of Facebook, but she's been able to stay connected to humanity without and enjoy her life without having any issues, and could easily walk away from both without experiencing any societal withdrawals. I love that. No societal withdrawal. That's pretty good, Cassie. Thank you for that. 331 says, never had Facebook. Don't use Twitter. I have a full life and am doing just fine. I love that. Yeah, so the question, what would happen if we all dumped Facebook and Twitter? And would you do it if you are on any of those platforms? Would you do it if it could cause some financial check? Didn't say the other word. To Zuckerberg and Musk. So there you go. We'll see what everybody has to say. These are the decisions of idiots. Where does that come from? Good friend Kurt Mullett posted a really cool, informative article on Substack. And so with that, I want to welcome to the show our friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. Good morning, Kurt. Welcome to Choose Views. What's happening, brother?
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
A little earlier today. I appreciate you being a team player, kind of helping us move things around a little bit so we could get John on it. John Parker on at 7. So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Always.
So listen, man. I mean, I'm going to take this first few minutes to talk about your article, and then in the after the break, we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff that took place over the weekend. But you wrote this really great, and you guys should go and check this out. It's titled "These Are the Decisions of Idiots," and it gets into
kind of self-explanatory, isn't it?
It kind of is, but I'll let you take the baton and share with us what this is all about. And I pulled some information as well, but talk to us, man.
Well, it's simply just revealing, who this regime is and what they're all about, and uh, you know, the destruction of so many. So many agencies and things that are in place that are there to protect us, and are there for a reason. This particular article, it was short, but it was just something I come across about how they are defunding all of these sensors in our oceans that gather data to tell us what's going on. Okay, the ocean is one of the least known. We know, they say all the time we know less about our oceans than we do about the moon. But these are things that this administration, whether it be our oceans, our waterways, our national forest, whatever the case may be, they're removing all of these agencies that help protect these things because they don't believe in them. And this particular instance, what they're doing comes right out of Project 2025. This comes right out. I think it's page 618 or something like that. I mean, I know the page exactly, but
You're talking
so
about
this is
chapter
directly
one,
out of.
page 676, or is that
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Richard, there's
I
so many
read your
things that
stuff,
go
man.
on. My brain doesn't.
I read your stuff and I make notes. So carry on, man. Carry on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But anyway, no, that's what it's all about. It's just about how they are destroying. These are things that are not. We may not see the effect of them immediately.
Right.
These are long-term effects that people have to understand. This is what our children and grandchildren and the future generations are going to have to deal with. Because when you reverse things like this and you stop programs, regardless if it's for a year or two or however long it may be, hopefully it's no longer than 2 years or three, but to get them back into place and have them start working it. I mean, it takes time. So,
And the
it's
break
just,
and what's happened too. Okay, so you may have heard this yesterday when I was talking with Professor Leah Littman, and she talked about one of the Supreme Court decisions that's coming up about the ability for the president to fire heads of agencies, and this is also tied into what Project 2025 and Kurt does such a good job of leaning into the fact that the Heritage Foundation is at the tip of the spear of a lot of the language, as we all know by now, in Project 2025, but also in this conversation around what Professor Littman was saying yesterday about the Supreme Court giving the president, giving Donald Trump the ability to fire heads of agencies. Well, this is one of them, the National Ocean, the NOAA and the OOI. Not to make you guys crazy with acronyms,
right.
but these are agencies that help us be more aware of what's happening with our waterways, specifically the oceans, right. Plural, I should say, as well as what's happening with I'm going to use a word that's not really the right word, but you guys will get it. Our water tables, the rising and lowering of the levels of the ocean. And what's problematic about taking people away from leadership in those roles is that the waterways allow us to have earth balance, land balance is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
And
right.
so go ahead, Kurt.
Well, these are not agencies that are actually in place to protect these waterways or oceanways. These are agencies that are in place to do studies and gather data
right.
at the changes that are occurring. And because the Heritage Foundation is people need to realize the Heritage Foundation is anti-global warming. They don't believe in any of this. Because why? Well, because global warming is that's the enemy of the billionaire. Okay.
Particularly those in the heavy industrial manufacturing class, fossil fuel class.
Exactly.
Okay, and those,
which includes a lot of them.
Right.
That's why this is so important to the Heritage Foundation, because this is destroying the global warming thing. So that's what these agencies do. I just wanted to throw that in there, and I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. I'm glad you did that. But tying back to a point that you made about how they've taken they've taken organizations, and specifically when we talk about the Ocean Observers Initiative that was built and designed to run for 25 years, they're killing it at year 10. And when I think about that as it relates to how much danger this kind of action causes, and I know, guys, this is a probably viewed maybe as a nerdy conversation and into the weeds conversation, but when we talk about our environment, we talk about the things that we have to protect. Oftentimes, we think about what's above us in terms of the air, and sometimes we forget about what's happening with what's below us, and that's the land and the water. And so these organizations, to Kurt's point, are designed not to protect necessarily. I think the data that they collect and the information allows us to be able to create systems that work to protect them. But again, this administration, and like I said before, there's kind of a stream of why I pulled together some of the things that I did. It's about not growing and building. It's about destruction and tearing down. And that's what we're seeing with how the mandate with Project 2025 is about tearing down our environmental support systems and our environmental agencies and our environmental, smart people. So I just wanted to applaud you for that. This is one of the things, some of the language that's there. Gut the data, erase the baseline, then there's no record to hold them accountable. The National Science Foundation has officially initiated a 15-month descoping plan to recover and remove over 900 in-water instruments from 4 major ocean observatory initiative arrays. That's something that we have to be mindful of that, folks. We have to
absolutely.
Go ahead, man. Sorry.
No, I mean, absolutely. And that's what I think that's what they're doing across the board. I mean, they're erasing information. They don't want us to know.
They don't want us to know. Yeah.
To be stupid.
Yeah. Well, and then this is.
I mean, I hate to put it that simply, but they don't want people to be educated. They don't want us to know what's going on.
Who was it that said that I like the undereducated or uninformed, whatever? Yeah. Who is
Nevada 2016 in February?
Yeah, that's right.
I know that.
Yep, that's exactly when it was. In case you guys don't know, that's when he said it. The war is another example.
First time.
Right, yeah, that we know of. The war in Iran is an example. The destruction that's taking place in the Ukraine and the destruction that's taking place in Gaza. These are all environmental problems.
And Lebanon now.
And Lebanon. Thank you, Kurt, for reminding all of us of that. These are detrimental to our environment, y'all. I hope we will. For those who are upset that I'm not saying it's detrimental to humanity and human beings, yes, I am saying that too. I'm saying that, and our environment suffers when we're dropping bombs and we're destroying property, we're destroying buildings where people live, which takes away their certainty and safety, but also what it does to the air quality, what it does to the land quality. How long does it take to then rebuild on those places and spaces that have been destroyed by the bombing of a particular area? So, yeah. But they do want us to be unaware, uninformed, and not have access to information that will give us the ability to push back because we have the data that's necessary to do that. So good on you, my man. Good on you. Great article. These are the decisions of idiots. Yes, they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that simple.
It's the cleanest way I can put it.
Sometimes headlines are enough right there. The further content inside an article.
No need to read any further.
No, it's just right there.
Because that headline could be put on how many different stories?
It's a hashtag.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a hashtag.
Kurt, let's take a quick little break, and then we come back. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I said in the first segment of the show. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, talking with our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. We'll be right back. guys. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us this morning. Thanks to Jill. Jill has said she's dumped Facebook at the beginning of the Trump administration. Misses some of the things that are some of the social fun things, if you will, but she's still hanging in there and says we should all turn off the internet for a period of time. Another listener says that we should keep fighting and agree that we shouldn't just sit and take it, but we need to push back on the corporations that are supporting this kind of garbage. Thanks to Arlene for your comments about the listeners. So what Arlene has asked me to do, which I will, is guys, if you email me, I'll send you the list of the sponsors. I put that together, and I'll email it out to you in the names of the CEOs of the 5 biggest ones. I'm more than happy to get that to you. I've got it saved in a Word document. So send me an email at richard@wcpt820.com. I'll send you the list and the names, and then you guys can you can go to work. You can bring out that sledgehammer by phone and call them and let them know. I don't know which direction Kurt's going to go on this. I believe I know, but I'm not going to make any assumptions. But I'm sure he was probably beyond frustrated at what happened with the event at large. But obviously the thing that is what more people are talking about is what the one UFC fighter said about Michelle Obama. And for me, again, like I said in the first segment, that these CEOs, if they want to still get our money, they need to denounce that this dude said this publicly, hold a press conference and say, we supported the event. That's our right to do that as a corporation. And I wouldn't be upset with them about that part of it, but they should go public and say, we denounce as an organization what was said about former First Lady Michelle Obama. Particularly as I look forward to this weekend when it's going to be the opening of the Obama Presidential Center. So, Kurt, let's throw down. What you got?
Well, they won't denounce it because that'll upset their base. This is not a new comment, Richard. This is, how long have we been listening to this? 16 years.
Wasn't it Rush Limbaugh that was one of or no? Actually, you know who it was that started it? From what I read, it's Joan Rivers. She asked Joan Rivers, think about that for a second. But anyhow, she had her head up Donald's behind.
So this has been a narrative of theirs for a long time.
Yep.
They're not going to change it. They think it's funny. They think they're humorous. And there's even idiots out there that actually believe it. So, but they're not going to denounce it. They're not going to do that. It's simply beyond them. Because.
But here's the thing, though. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying here's what's at risk. Yeah. But it also shows, and I appreciate you saying it this way. It shows what they really believe and who they support. And that's the baseline of why I said that it's the corporations that we need to be willing to go after as well as the politicians, because there's some black women and black men that drive Ram trucks, okay? There's some black men and black women that participate in Polymarket, drink Monster, drink Anheuser-Busch products, right, and participate in DraftKings that are probably center or left in their political beliefs. So that's where I go. The risk. Who are these CEOs really supporting? Their right voters, or their right customers, or their left customers? So anyhow, there you go.
They don't care about anyone but their white customers, Richard. I mean, let's be honest here.
And their green customers.
They don't care about anyone but their white customers, because we have to understand, and I think it's just shocking how much more I'm working with somebody now who does excellent research, and it's just amazing some of the things that we're digging up, and how deep this really goes, and how long this has been something they've been working at. I mean, let's not talk about the history of America and what we've always been, but just what's happened since the Heritage Foundation was created up to this point, going through the Reagan years and all of these things.
Yeah.
This is and I hate using this word over and over, this is their pinnacle. This is their point where they've always wanted to reach.
Yeah.
This moment when their white supremacy, when their white supremacist ideologies, when their hatred towards all other people who are non-white gets to be brought to the forefront, and they get to implement all of these things and these policies. So when a comment is made like that about one of the most respectable first ladies that we've had in our country, I mean, she's right up there, you know, and they laugh about it and think it's funny. This is what we have to deal with. So they are not going to denounce it. And you know, a lot of those companies that you talk about, they're huge supporters of this regime. But it's just funny how we could go from Kid Rock shooting up a bunch of Bud Light cases of beer with his AR-15 to, you know, being at an event that's sponsored by Bud Light. It's the stupidity. They're idiots. They're idiots. The stupidity and the optics that they give off. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It is absolutely mind-boggling. You know, and I run out of adjectives, Richard. I really do.
Well,
It's just
and
hard
that's
to describe.
it's easy. I think I go back to your article. The simplicity of it is sometimes the best way to go. You know, these are decisions that are made by idiots. And here's the crazy thing. I look at some things oftentimes like, don't you really understand what you're doing? Just goes to show how idiotic they are. So the yacht class, okay, spends time on what? They don't spend their time in rivers. They spend their times where? On oceans. Yeah. You know, salt.
The Epstein yacht class.
Yeah. The big, stupid, wealthy yacht class spends their time on salt water, large bodies of salt water, i.e. the oceans. Yet they're the same folks that are funding the depletion of knowledge about what's happening to our oceans. Kind of shows their stupidity. Cutting their own necks in this regard as it relates to not protecting the thing that allows them to, you know, drive their yachts around. So anyhow, I see irony often.
I mean, you know, having the honor guard lined up on the Lincoln Memorial and presenting these MMA fighters, just the optics of that were just so disturbing. And I didn't watch any of it. And
Neither did I.
Watch anything like that. But I've read enough about it. But seeing Kid Rock walk down the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to an honor guard and have his, you know, chest, his hillbilly chest exposed with his, and look, I'm not saying this because, you know, I've said this before, you know, I'm hillbilly. I don't hate hillbillies.
No, you're not. But I get your point.
But his slime ball, hillbilly butt, open shirt, tattoo. You know, I mean, seriously, this is where we are at in our country right now, and we have millions of people that are cheering this, and then to make a derogatory remark about a former first lady who many of us have a great deal of respect for, and I would dare say there's a lot of people that have more respect for her than they do Barack. I mean,
in some ways, that's
ways, yes.
That's not a new statement where a lot of people are, you know, that's a whole nother conversation about the respect factor. But no, I get your point. I knew that you and I are going to talk about this because it's one of those things that it's like what happens over the weekend. You and I get to filter it out, and by Wednesday we come up with our points of view on it. But I wanted to get your take. I kind of knew, I didn't want to make any assumptions, but I kind of knew where you were and how you were landing your plane on this. But your article was really spot on about, these are decisions that are made by idiots. You guys need to go to Kurt's Substack. It's a great read. He posts some really thoughtful things, and like he said, the research that he and some of his folks that he's working with are doing is really great findings. I'm in that same category, Kurt, where I've been doing more and more research about more and more organizations, both businesses and some of the think tanks on the right and what they have always been about and what they want to see this country be more like. So thank you for a great article.
There's some scary stuff out there, Richard.
Without a doubt. Well, listen, my man,
disturbing.
as always, it's great to hang out with you for a little bit on Wednesday mornings. Thanks for making some time so we could squeeze in John Parker today, and appreciate you for that.
Not a problem.
Keep up the good work, Kurt Mullet.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hoosier Blue 63 is the place, it's the name, and trust me, when you go there, you will be inspired and informed. So thanks, man. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Yeah, I talk about idiots, so if that's your thing.
That's your thing. There you go. All right, man.
Come find me.
Have a good week.
Have a great day.
All right, you too.
All right, take care.
773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as our good friends at AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu, and we'll be right back.
He's not here to yell. He's here to inform and maybe stir the pot. This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, this is Choose Views, and I'm Richard Chu. Today on Live, local and progressive Joan Esposito will talk to Amanda Zarowski, reproductive rights activist, and Spencer Critchley, author of Patriots of Two Nations, live, local, and progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. And then tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by guest co-host Ken Mejia Beal, and their guests are Brian Lemech, Executive Director of Defend the Vote, Illinois State Rep Diane Blair Sherlock, Democratic representing the 46th District, and Todd Belcourt, Executive Director of Social Change, as well as Nathan Taylor of Election Truth Alliance. That's Patty Vasquez Driving It Home, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, AM 820, the Heartland Signal website. Tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. And then tomorrow on Choose Views, my guests are Ryan Nunn, Director of Research with the Yale University's Budget Lab, Tom Moore, Senior Fellow for Democracy and Government at the Center for American Progress, and Nate Weisberg, editor of Washington Monthly's latest article, How AI Broke the Entry-Level Job. Speaking of folks that hang out on WCPT in one way or another, our next guest is the host of The Gailey Show, and I've been telling y'all for the last few weeks, make sure you're checking out Politics Bar, Matt McNeil Show, and The Gailey Show. Why? Because you should. That's where you should be. You should be checking out John Parker's show. And John is with us this morning. Good morning, John, and welcome back to Choose Views. But I should say you just ran around the corner and came back to WCPT. Good morning. What's going on, man?
Good morning. Good morning. I was joking. I'm like, only Richard Chu can get me up this early in the morning. So I'm glad to see you too. This is the first time we're seeing each other on video.
I know, because he's always done it by phone. Listen, man, I'm glad you're well. And I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so much that we talk about respectively on our shows. But I appreciate you being with us this morning. John, I did not know this, and I don't know how many people know this about you, but talk to us a little bit about your work with the Queer Armenian Library. That's just something that a lot of folks don't know about, man. Walk us through this real quickly.
Richard, doing your research.
I try.
Right. So I am Armenian American on my mom's side.
Okay.
My mom's parents' entire family is Armenian. They were actually survivors of the genocide, and they were refugees to France. So I'm actually, because she moved with her sister to the States, I'm a dual citizen of France and the U.S., but I am an Armenian American. And I say that because when they moved over here to the Midwest, we're in a diaspora, right? An Armenian diaspora. So there were very few Armenians that I knew growing up here. In my dad's family is American from the Northwest Lower Michigan. Very, very few Armenians. If I wanted to talk to Armenians and see Armenians, we'd go home. We'd go to France, right?
Yeah.
And see folks there. So very few Armenians, and even fewer queer Armenians growing up. And because of the genocide and the loss of 1.5 million lives, there's this feeling that's grown up within the community that you can't be queer. Because if you're being queer, and this is a very nationalist, far-right stance, so not every Armenian prescribes to this, and I'd be very mindful that I'm saying that, but there is this very vitriolic viewpoint that if you're queer, you're continuing the genocide because you can't have kids, right? It's a very extreme position to take.
Got it.
When you're 12, you don't know any better. You know what I mean? You don't know how, you know your body is doing things and you can't stop it. And apparently, you know, at church, it's not getting changed either. So you're kind of stuck in between these two worlds, right? So I really kept my queerness and my Armenianness separate.
Got it.
For a very, very long time. And then in my 30s, I finally went, this is crazy. Like there has to be someone else out there. And so I went and connected with a group in LA, the Gay and Lesbian Armenian Society, GALLUS. And I got to sit down and I'm like, this is the first time I'm actually talking to another queer Armenian that I know is queer Armenian. And we're talking about the queer Armenian lived experience. And I'm like, someone else must have written about this too. Like there has to be other things. And so I just started, you know, as a lark, like, you know, looking for something. I thought I'd find an op-ed, maybe a novel, obscure novel or whatever. And I just started accumulating stuff. And then after about 4 years, I looked at my bookshelf, which is actually that one right there. You get to see it on camera.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I might have the most comprehensive collection because I've been searching for 4 years. And I mean, it was a search, Richard. I was looking on all the major book retailers. I was looking on like thriftbooks.com, which looks at all the thrift stores. I was looking at every Armenian site that was pro-LGBTQ and had a book recommendation on it. There was an amazing blog that had done stuff for a lot in the early 20th century cataloging stuff. And I said, no one else should have to do this.
Yeah.
No one else should have to spend 4 years looking for themselves in literature. So, long story short, I said, I'll just take my list and I'll put it on the internet. And then, of course, it's me. I couldn't just put a list of book titles on the internet. So I created a nice, you know, website. So for every title in the library, you see the book, where it fits within the universe. So if it's like the very first memoir published by a bisexual Armenian American or the first memoir by a trans, you know, Armenian. So I try to put that history in it, a description about the book. I tried to find some media, like if they'd given an interview or whatnot, I put that on the page and launched it in 2020. And 4 years later, was it last year? No, the year before, Oxford University. So this is a digital resource. Yeah. Oxford University, through a friend of mine at the International Armenian Literary Alliance, got connected with me and the Bodleian Library, Richard, the oldest freaking library in the world, reached out and said, we want to do an event and we're going to buy every single book in the library and we're going to make it publicly available at the Bodleian Library. And we're going to categorize. So they're like, send us a little graphic that we can paste on the inside of the book covers so everyone knows it's part of this collection. That's the Queer Armenian Library.
See, I'll say this and I'll tease us both. I wanted to talk about this as out of the jump today because we're talking about America's 250-year birthday, anniversary, whatever, however we want to phrase it. And sometimes when we say our immigrant population is who's made our country, you know, sometimes it sounds a little bit pedantic and a little I don't know, just kind of overreaching. But the reason why it's important to say that, though, it's kind of a weird duality, is that the history of so many of our, quote, immigrant communities and communities that are not, quote, straight white male in America don't get told. And in the last number of years with this current administration and all the rest, they've worked really damn hard to tear down and take away and get rid of our histories that are not white, straight white male in the United States of America. So when I was reading through some of the stuff on you, I was like, that's a story that needs to be told. You and I are going to solve as many problems as we can with regard to politics and other issues, but that's a story as we come up on this 250 that needs to be told because there are many Armenians who are part of the United States. Many folks don't know that they are, and I would dare say that many folks in your community and that part of mom's community had to kind of hide it a little bit because folks they were worried about what they might be what might be put upon them if it were disclosed that part of their heritage is Armenian. So I just wanted to give you a moment, brother, to speak to that and talk about that part of your heritage and share it on this anniversary of America's 250th, because that's what makes us all a big part of this quilt that we are part of. So kudos, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Richard.
Absolutely. Absolutely, John. Your show's going great, and it's good to be all of us part of this team. Talk about a quilt where we're all, we all have our hands on the table to try to move some things forward. The LGBTQ community is taking some significant hits from the federal government right now, and obviously in terms of programs, policies, and such that are being torn down. But one of the things that I do find compelling is that folks like you and me that are part of the communities that they're trying to tear down, we just keep rising back up again and fighting and throwing punches. And so, I mean, I think that's what a lot of this is all about, is us recognizing that as we do keep shouldering up and we keep fighting together rather than at each other, we get a hell of a lot more done. So I'm glad that things are going well. And the Gailey Show is what's happening in the evenings here on WCPT. In case people didn't know, but I say it every day. So.
And every afternoon on AM 950.
And every afternoon on AM 950. John, let's take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the numbers in terms of things that are happening on a state level. 773-763-9278 is a number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And of course, where else? AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with my good friend and other host, John Parker, The Gailey Show. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu. I'm talking with John Parker, who is the host of The Gailey Show on AM 950 in the afternoons and, of course, in the evenings here on WCPT. Make sure that you're tuning in Fridays, this particular Friday and the next two, as we are talking about America at 250, conversations that will explore this week, Juneteenth and the fight for racial equality and, of course, the expansion and contraction of the vote in the United States of America. I'll be joined at the end of the hour by Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis. Right now, I'm joined by John Parker, as I said. John, let's talk a little bit about some stuff that is happening. And this is coming from the ACLU about the number of anti-LGBTQ bills in different states in the United States. I was shocked, and when I say shocked, I was shocked. Surprised that Minnesota, the state that we're broadcast in, has like 39, almost over 30 anti-LGBTQ bills. What do you know about that, and how is that tracking based on some of the things that you're reporting on and that you're speaking to?
So this is a unfortunate trend that not just in the state of Minnesota, I think nationally last year, we ended with 1,019 anti-trans bills in state legislatures across the country.
Yep.
So 1,019. And I every year, usually by about this time, we get about 500 to 600 across the country, depending on who's tracking it, of the number of bills. And so largely these are MAGA legislators who this is their only thing they want to legislate on.
Right.
They don't want to talk about affordability. They don't want to talk about your health care. They don't want to talk about potholes.
Nope.
They don't want to actually do anything about fraud. They want to convene committees like they did here in Minnesota to claim, that there is more fraud than anybody ever knows, and they're the only ones who are ever going to be able to fix it, right? So this is the supreme irony for me of the 2024 election where, and they lie. We know MAGA likes to lie. That's all they do. But to see those commercials where they were like, Kamala Harris is for they, them, not for you and me. And I thought, when you look at the number of bills, laws, committees, debates, advertising,
It's great.
markups that they do about the LGBTQ community. The Republican Party is obsessed with us, legislatively speaking. Objectively speaking, if you were a voter who wanted your legislature in Illinois, in Minnesota, in North Carolina, and you want them to focus on potholes, health insurance, taxes, etc., don't vote for the Republican Party, because all they're going to do is talk about bathroom bills all day. All they're going to do is talk about a picture book that has, an LGBTQ character in it. That's what they're going to do if you put them in office. And we have the evidence of that, because every single year, all they're doing is introducing bills. You get someone from outstate Illinois, outstate Minnesota, outstate North Carolina, and you go, hey, my legislator, what did you do today? Well, I did a bill about pronouns. Are you kidding me right now? And they just turn them in every single year, and they just keep introducing them every single year. And it just baffles me that anybody thinks that they would be able to get anything else done, because all they have literally learned how to do, legislatively speaking, is to target the LGBTQ community and write bills about that. I don't even know if they would know how to write a bill about road infrastructure at this place. Ooh, I'm feeling salty this morning, Richard.
I think sometimes I'm good at doing something to get us excited about stuff. See, this is the thing, John, that being salty, being spicy, as my good friend Rico Moat says, being spicy, it's all about energy. And one of the things that they're trying to do, and Kurt Muller, who was on before you, a good friend from Central Indiana, talks about this. They're working really doggone hard to depress and suppress not just the vote, but our activity in the process. And so I think being spicy is our calling. It's our requirement. We need to be angry. Listen, brother, if I get kicked off the air if I said, and the guys around here know me, I'm a respectable person. I make sure that I hold my respect. But I get kicked off the air if I said the things that I think about the way that I really want to say them. So we need to say, my point of all that is, John, yeah, you would too, because I know how you roll off the air. We need to remain spicy and salty, because they don't want us to be, because when we are, we get stuff done. That's the difference. They know that when we get salty and spicy and collective and take the people's movement of Dr. King and Malcolm and Bobby Kennedy and Medgar and pull that together, that we get stuff done. So in this space, the Republicans, to your point, they don't know how to get anything done that's helping everybody. And I refuse to be one of the people that says, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let we don't have the luxury of that anymore. We may have been in the past, but we don't at this time. But I wanted to chat with you about that as it relates to some of the anti-LGBTQ legislation that's being put forward. It is being done by Republicans, y'all. It's happening in Illinois. It's happening all over the country. And interestingly enough, right here in the heartland, some of the leading states are states that are right here in the heartland. But that's because it's coming from Republicans who don't have anything else to do. So let's talk about that for a second, John, before we get toward wrapping up. Right now, that effort by the Republicans to continue in states where they have one of the chambers is, to me, why we have to have the trifecta. Because when we have the trifecta, that happens less. And it allows Democrats who are getting things done to get more things done. So speak to your thoughts about us working a little bit harder on a state level. I'm talking with Kelder Royce in a little bit from Wisconsin. On a state level, what we have to be doing more of, in your opinion and your experience.
It's interesting that you just asked about that, because yesterday we spoke with the head of the DFL party here in Minnesota. The DFL is Democratic Farmer Labor Party. It's our version of the Democratic Party here in Minnesota. Richard Karlbaum, who is a member of the LGBTQ community, and he shared a stat with me that I was like, "Wait, what?" After their convention in May, they had their first, the weekend after that, they had their big first mobilization into the state. And he said, we hit about 20,000 doors in June. He said, we didn't hit that level in terms of those numbers until October of 2024.
Gee.
And the general. He's like, we have so many people right now that want to sign up and get out there. And he's like, if it hadn't rained that Sunday of that weekend, we could have hit upward of 30,000 doors. He said they had trained 10,000 constitutional observers in the early part of the year. That's just the DFL. That's not including the observers that other community groups had organized for Operation Metro Surge. They are seeing levels of volunteer engagement that are way higher than they have experienced before. And Richard is no stranger to running massive statewide campaigns. Like, he's been part of Walz's campaigns. He was the one that ran the country's first campaign in Minnesota. It was we were the first state to reject an anti-marriage equality amendment, constitutional amendment that Republicans had proposed. And so he is literally seeing numbers of people getting engaged that they haven't seen before. Now, that's great. I love that. I want to hear that. We just got a poll out yesterday that says that Minnesota voters still trust Republicans more to deal with fraud in this state. And I mention that poll because Republicans don't want voters to remember Operation Metro Surge at all. And B, they really don't want voters to remember that the local Republicans were the ones that asked the Trump administration to come in and do what he did. Right. So it was a joint effort. It wasn't the Trump administration who came in here. It was Trump's folks here locally created the pathway, opened the door and said, come on in. And they came on in. Right. So they're desperately trying to pivot to the fraud, which is why we see J.D. Vance last week saying, hey, you know, let's get more fraud investigations going on here. Fraud. And it's like, this is ironic, right? Considering who's in the White House.
Right.
So I do get a little, worried where I'm like, we're seeing this great turnout. We're seeing the doors getting knocked on. I thought it was really interesting. They've actually changed their script this year. Richard told us yesterday, they're not even asking like, hi, my name is, Richard. I'm from the DFL. Who you plan on voting for? The script is, hi, I'm John. I'm your neighbor. How are you? How are you doing? Because they're recognizing the economic impact is terrible right now. And the political climate is terrible right now, particularly if you're living in a neighborhood that has a lot of, immigrant populations, undocumented or otherwise. So there are scenes of optimism. Like when I saw that we turned out 75,000 people in the Twin Cities in negative 15-degree weather to protest ICE, I thought we don't have a turnout problem. We're going to be good there. But I do have sincere PTSD and anxiety when it comes to the American electorate. And so I take nothing for granted anymore. And so I am encouraged to see what the DFL is doing locally. I'm encouraged to see other numbers. But, to your point, people are spicy. Elected officials are swearing a lot. I noticed that because I'm like, we're having to hit the bleep button and have to tell people before they come on the air, like, please, you can't swear FCC on the radio. So I think there is, and even this past weekend at Golden Valley Pride, where we were broadcasting live from, people were coming up to me, and I don't think, how do I phrase this? They want experience, yes, but they want a fighter.
Yeah.
And they want people who are going to take the fight to people. And that was an interesting theme that I got over the weekend, is yet people, yay, thank you for being here. We love Pride. We love the show. We love the station, blah, blah, blah. But when we got into the politics of things, people were like, who is going to fight? Who do you think is going to fight? And I thought, this is really interesting right now.
John, what I've been saying for a while is we need to bring sledgehammers to the fight, not even a gun. We need to bring sledgehammers and start breaking some stuff and knocking some things over. Listen, man, I don't know if you're going to be in town for Pride weekend here in Chicago, but if you do, hopefully I can say hey to you. But in the meantime, keep up the great work with your show. It is needed and it's important and people appreciate it. And thanks for hanging out with me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard, for all that you do.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the week. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And you just heard it, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. When we come back, we'll be talking with another great Heartland Midwestern person, Calder Roys, who's running for governor of the state of Wisconsin. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu. And what a joy to talk with John Parker, who is the host of The Gailey Show. John is he brings it every day on his program, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to share some things with us this morning. We're keeping it Midwest today with Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blues 63 in Indiana, John Parker from Minnesota, and now this really dynamic American attorney, businesswoman, and Democratic politician who serves as a Wisconsin state senator representing the District 26. Is also a candidate for governor of Wisconsin. I'm talking about who? Kelda Roys. Good morning, Kelda, and welcome back to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You got a smile on your face. You're feeling fired up and ready to go?
I'm fired up and ready to go, and so is Wisconsin.
That's right. They really are. And I got to tell you, one of the things that's been clear is that the state is, I say this a lot, Kelda, and that is the amount of people that we have on our bench statewide in different states and then nationally. We have a lot of people that have stepped up, a lot of people who are elected officials like you. I mean, you're a state senator in Wisconsin, but you're saying, I know I can get to the next level because we have to block having any of these weak A Republicans be in executive roles in our states right now. And you've decided I'm in the race. So talk to us about what you're excited about. Talk to us about what you're bringing to the table. I got a couple things I want to ask you about, some stuff that's happening, but how is your campaign going? What are some of the things you're hearing on the ground? What are people saying to you of those people that are excited?
Well, what I've been feeling is a huge amount of momentum. It has been a crowded primary field with 7 good people.
Yep.
But I am the one that has the momentum behind me. I have the biggest endorsement of the race of our teachers union, our NEA affiliate. And I also have just received the endorsement of the only statewide official who's backed anyone in this race, our former Lieutenant Governor Barbara Lawton. Given those things and that I have the most endorsements overall, I think people are realizing that I'm the candidate to back because this is a different era for Wisconsin. We've been in our goalie era with this Republican gerrymandered legislature, and we're about to go into our governing era, and we need our most passionate, experienced, and effective leader to do that.
So talk to us about this that happened here in Illinois, something that you guys are about to, if you haven't already been experiencing, and that's the amount of outside money. And I'm not talking about some of the household names of dark money necessarily, but some of the outside money. How is it impacting, or in your assessment, going to impact the race and the other races there? Outside money that wants to be able to have an influence on a state election. What are you seeing and hearing there, or experiencing for that matter?
Well, Trump, as I travel around the state, even in more conservative areas, Trump is deeply unpopular. People are really hurting. And so there's an opportunity for Democrats to reverse the trends of the last generation. But there is so much national MAGA money flowing in to back this MAGA Congressman, Tom Tiffany, who's Trump's handpicked candidate. And he's already up on the air with these, I got to say, very well-produced commercials to the tune of millions of dollars. And because the Democrats are still having our primary, it's making it very difficult for voters to actually learn the truth about how extreme Tiffany's record is. I mean, he's voted with Trump 100% of the time in Congress.
Yeah. Is there a walk and chew gum moment where, I know that you guys have to look at this in terms of your individual races, but collectively, is there an opportunity for messaging that says that we don't need outside money from Republicans, specifically Trump and his other minion, to affect our race here? Because I think that's one of the things that we can't miss. As much as we've got, crowded fields or experienced fields of players, of people that are on our bench, and this is just happening in Wisconsin, it's happening in other parts of the country, it happened here in Illinois. I think we still have to be willing to say collectively as Democrats that we don't need that here in our state. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think for Wisconsin, we've been kind of the tip of the spear on this. We had Elon Musk trying to buy a Supreme Court race, violating our election bribery laws. I was actually the first legislator to call for his arrest for doing that. So we've been fighting outside money and specifically MAGA special interest money for a long time in Wisconsin. And I think the problem is that because Wisconsin is a swing state and we're used to being just inundated with many ads and all of this outside money, that people kind of tune out of politics. And that's actually really bad for our democracy. We need people to be engaged, especially when we're fighting to preserve democracy against this authoritarian regime.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think people are wanting to hear more and more is that, and let's put it this way, be willing to just call it out, not tiptoe around it anymore. I say this often, Senator, that we have got to be willing to knock over some tables, create some noise, and be damn this thing around decorum anymore, and talk about things in a way that allows people to say, we get it. We're not going to be mealy-mouthed or weak about this anymore. And if I've got to throw out a few, S-bombs or F-bombs or whatever to get somebody's attention, then I may have to do that so that folks know that we are listening. Are you hearing? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask you anyhow. Are you hearing people say, please punch harder, Senator Royce?
Well, I'm hearing people say, thank you for telling the truth.
Okay.
Because one of the most powerful things that you can do when you're up against the kind of disinformation machine and authoritarians like Trump is to tell the truth. And I think it's really important that political leaders not be afraid in this moment. I've spent my whole career, 25 years, as an advocate and a lawyer and, sometimes as a legislator, fighting out against these guys. So I'm not afraid and I'm not intimidated, but I think a lot of political folks are, because they think, boy, people are going to say mean things about me on the internet, or what's this going to mean for my political future if I actually tell the truth? But what that leads to is people just feeling like those guys don't get it. They don't see what we're seeing. And, a big reason that Trump is effective is because he tries to create an alternative reality that makes us basically doubt what we're seeing. We know this guy is a straight up grifter. He is a criminal. He is totally incompetent. Everything that he's doing is to make us less prosperous, less healthy, less safe, and less free. And we need politicians who can correctly name that because that is the first step to fighting back and saving our democracy.
Yeah, telling the truth and speaking without, any hiccups in what you say, as I say, from the ground up with it, is what more people are saying, and it's all over the country that we're hearing this. Let's talk about the division that's in the state legislature right now, because I've been of the mindset for the long, long time that the more we have trifectas, certainly two of the branches, but if we have the trifecta, that really works well, because Democrats tend to get some stuff done where we're not having to fight Republicans always just constantly throwing rocks into the gears. What are you sensing there, and what do we have to do in Wisconsin to help that?
That's a great question, because we've been locked out of power for a generation. And so Wisconsin, which used to be this beacon of progress that set the standard for things like labor rights and the environment and even LGBTQ equality, has now fallen behind all of our Midwestern peers like Illinois. But now we're on the cusp of being able to change it. We will flip the Senate Democratic. We have a good shot at the Assembly if we have the right nominee for governor. So we could very well have a trifecta come January 2027. And that's going to mean we can do things like raise the minimum wage, restore union rights for workers, expand access to health care. My plan will open up our state health insurance pool, the same coverage I get as a state employee, to let anybody buy in. And that's urgent because we're about to lose coverage for about 270,000 Wisconsinites thanks to the cuts Donald Trump made. So all of that is within our grasp, but we've got to have the right nominee at the top of the ticket. Yeah. Number one, we got to win this election. And number two, governing is actually hard. People think, oh, trifecta, it's unicorns and rainbows. Believe me, I was there the last time Wisconsin had it. I was my first term in the Assembly in 2009. It's actually very hard, when you have a narrow majority and one or two members can kind of hold you over a barrel to get broad agreement around passing an agenda. So you really have to have a skilled governor who's willing to use political power to seize this opportunity and get things done. We can't be fighting amongst ourselves, and we can't have somebody who needs to put their finger in the wind before they're going to decide whether or not we're going to pass abortion rights protections or not.
Yeah, you can't, Senator, you can't raise your finger and go, is that manure or was that me? So,
Right.
Senator, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of your proposed legislative ideas, some of the things that you want to see happen. 773-763-9278 is our number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, as well as AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm talking with Senator Kelda Roys, and candidate for governor of Wisconsin. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is the number. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with Wisconsin State Senator Kelda Roys, who is a candidate for governor of the great state of Wisconsin. So, Senator, let's go down this path real quickly. The Trump administration's destructive policies or actions have affected cost increases, student loans, the federal program cuts that we all have heard about when it comes to housing and all the rest. But what is it that you are doing, or what is it as part of your platform you want to do to offset those things, if not, create legislation in the state that gives many of the men and women of Wisconsin a fighting chance?
Well, we've got to address the affordability crisis that is strangling our families and our farmers and small businesses. And that really has two components. It's about raising wages for people. Wisconsin's still at $7.25 an hour for the minimum wage. And boy, that really affects like early childhood educators and home health aides. And we got to lower cost on the big ticket items like healthcare and housing, childcare, and prescription drugs. And from my work in the legislature and as an advocate, I've put together detailed plans for how to tackle each one of these challenges.
So let me ask you this question. Talk about healthcare for a second. You said earlier, and I want to make sure we touch on this, that Wisconsin folks should have the ability to have similar access that legislators do. And you've put together a very coolly named program. Y'all gonna like this. It's called what? Kelda Care. So talk to us about that for a second, Senator.
Yeah, so Kelda Care basically will let any Wisconsinite, you could be a school district, a manufacturing company, small business like the one I've run for 13 years, or just an individual, and you can actually buy in to the very same health insurance that I get as a state employee. Now, it's not state funded, right? The taxpayers aren't picking up the tab. You're buying in, but you're getting to be part of a huge health insurance pool at cost, and you can choose the very same different plans and coverages that state employees get. Why should your health insurance be connected to your job? Think about how much more economic freedom we could all have if you were able to say, you know what, I'm going to go back to school, or I got to take some time out to care for my dad who's aging, or I'm ready to start a small business, and you wouldn't lose your health care.
Yeah.
That could transform our economy, you know?
Well, and it'll transform the economy, and it's also going to help us have a healthier community. And I think from a policy standpoint, it will show voters, whether they are blue, red, or in between, that you care about them, that we're putting together something that says, hey, listen, companies shouldn't just be the ones at the table that can direct and guide how health policy is written because of the numbers. It's insurance coverage of any kind is a law of large numbers. And the more we have more people inside of the plans, I know this from my years in the industry, the more we have more people in the plan, and whatever the plan is, the more we're able to control the price of that service that's rendered. Pretty simple, right?
Exactly. And that's why, some of the biggest beneficiaries of KeldaCare are going to be large companies that right now are, they're dealing with huge premium increases that are very unstable, because even if they're a big company, they might employ 3,000 people. That's a far cry from covering, say, 100,000 that the state employee pool does. And the more people that we can cover in that same pool, by the way, the more we can drive down premium costs, because we're reducing uncompensated care and we're spreading those costs and the risk across a greater number of people.
Yeah, and I dig the name. We have, as Democrats, have to keep coming up with good names. Obviously, there's got to be foundation and substance to what we come up with legislations. But KeldaCare, that rolls off the tongue pretty well. So it's good that you've named it something like that. In terms of things that are going on in the state, I got to talk about this one. This is one that I know that many people there may not know about, but the Trump administration's policy on SNAP, or I don't know if we even call it policy, but just their position on SNAP, is actually, quiet as it's being kept, is something that could force, if I understand this correctly from what I was reviewing, some retailers to stop accepting SNAP benefits. What are you hearing around that, and how are you trying to navigate through that? Because as a current legislator and someone that would be the CEO of the state.
Yeah, this is actually really sad because, Trump's position on SNAP is basically kids should go hungry. And he's made devastating cuts to these critical safety net programs. In Wisconsin, because we've had Republicans in control of the legislature for 15 years, we don't have things like healthy school meals for all, right? We've got a very, very limited social safety net at the state level. And Republicans just made changes that are going to basically force retailers to police what's in people's grocery cart. So if you're a mom, buying weekly groceries for your kids and one of them's got a birthday, you can't buy a birthday cake for your kid. Those are the kind of changes that Wisconsin Republicans think that the government and grocery store clerks should basically be standing between you and what's in your cart. That if you're poor, you shouldn't get to buy soda or anything else. Now, I believe in healthy eating. I think it's great. But as a mom, I got to say, to be punishing poor kids in this way is abhorrent to me.
Yeah, there's keeping creating these requirements that are actually punishing in nature are certainly not inspiring, depending on how one looks at it. I think about a birthday cake. That's about children and their family enjoying and celebrating that child. And so when I saw this, I thought, man, the more and more we dig deeper into the things that are happening with some of these federal mandates or these eliminations of programs, we realize how punishing they are to people all across America. And when I hear you talk about this, and I have my own thoughts about it, I still have to ask this question, Senator, is how in the heck are people, because this situation with what we just talked about with SNAP benefits and certain retailers being forced to stop accepting them, this is impacting rural communities, which overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And I sit back and I go, what is going on, y'all?
And they're already food deserts. A lot of them are already food deserts. So in Wisconsin, we've got huge portions of the state that are rural that do not have multiple options for grocery stores. So you're already seeing higher prices. And then when you have grocery stores that are not going to be accepting SNAP benefits because they are not in a position to police these arbitrary guidelines where this particular orange juice is not qualified and this other orange juice is, they're just like, well, we're not going to do this. We don't have the capacity. Our grocery store clerks are not capable of doing this, you're basically just going to make a lot of people go hungry. And I got to say, at the same time, we have Trump essentially selling out our government so that he can have a ballroom and giving no bid contracts to unqualified cronies to paint the reflecting pool blue. It is abhorrent to me. The idea that we're going to hold poor parents over a barrel so that their kids can't ever have a candy bar, but we're going to let Trump and his family steal billions from the Treasury.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. If the federal government said, Senator Royce, here's $1 million, and now you're governor, there's probably a whole bunch of things you could do with it to help the state out, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just it's $1 million. It's a lot of money, or it's not a lot of money, but $1 million would be that would be a gift to the state, right? That you could do some great stuff with it, right? So when I said this the other day, and being very snarky when we talk about the reflecting pool, I have to talk about this with you real quick so we can have some fun. $16 million in a no bid contract, and there's algae in it again. And now they're pouring chemicals in it to get rid of the algae. I said the other day, Senator Royce, how about if we take the $16 million and give it to 16 states or 16 of the largest, cities in the country, and let the mayor or the governor do something with that to help their citizenry? That's that's the literal what we're talking about when we say this is how reckless this administration is. That's $16 million. I'm sure as a state senator or even as a potential future governor, there's a lot that you could do with $1 million if you were to get part of that. Is that a fair statement?
Believe me, we've got a lot of unmet needs. We have $0 for early childhood education in our state budget starting June 30th, right? We just eliminated, the Republicans killed our conservation program, the beautiful Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program. I'll do you one better. At the state level, Wisconsin Republicans decided that it was a good idea to give what's going to cost $2 billion in taxpayer money to big hyperscale data centers that are, undermining our environment and trampling on local communities. They've got no regulations in place, and yet they want to shovel our money to these data centers. That's outrageous. Yeah. And they say liberals are the fiscally irresponsible ones. Sir, I would like to fund our schools. I would like our roads to be paved. I'd like toilet paper in the bathrooms of our parks.
How about if we invest in and do it the right way, which is what you're saying? And, I appreciate you, again, telling the truth and being willing to say that the things that might be considered the hard things to say. Senator Royce, it's an honor to have you with us this morning. And I know that I don't think the primaries have happened yet. Are there going to be any debates or anything real quick as we wrap up?
Yeah, there's a ton of forums, and there's a debate on July 28th. The primary is August 11th, but it is time for us to consolidate now behind my candidacy so that we can actually beat Tom Tiffany in November. We can't afford a Trump rubber stamp in Wisconsin, and Illinois can't afford it either. If you guys want to come up here and recreate and have fun, we got to preserve our beautiful lakes and natural places.
We're cousins, Senator Royce, so we got to take care of our cousins. Thank you for being with us this morning. We appreciate you hanging out for a little bit. Stay safe. Maybe we'll have you back on again before the primaries or sometime around the debates. That sound okay?
Can't wait for it. Thank you, Richard.
All right. Have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, guys. There you go. We made it to the finish line. Thanks to Senator Kelda Royce, who's running for Wisconsin governor. Thanks to John Parker from The Gailey Show. And thanks to Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63 for hanging out with us today, and to Henry and to Mike for making sure we stay on the rails. Stay tuned for The Stephanie Miller Show. And remember, y'all, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.